Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and today's guest is another one of our authors. I know I've had a lot of authors lately, but this is year end and everybody's trying to get their book on the market before the big rush, which, for those of you who don't know that are thinking about publishing in 2023, the time to hire your publisher is around probably between March and June to get out by Christmas, because what you guys don't realize is we don't just snap our fingers and make a book happen. We have editing, we have formatting, we have uploading, the distribution, the pre-sale. And the closer we get to the holidays, usually starting in September, then we actually get into what's called expedited shipping, because they get so many orders that it really becomes a problem. Expedited shipping is super expensive, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So we want to get those books shipped out to everyone early. And usually if we can't get them shipped out by about the beginning of October, we're in big trouble with the shipping. So anyway, so I'm excited about today's guest. He's one of our authors. Also, don't forget to go over to breakthroughauthormagazine.com. Get your free subscription to our monthly magazine. Lots of tips and tricks and stories about, other authors who have been super successful. So really excited about it. Today's guest is probably the first sort of political book we have ever done. And this is sort of an important book because of the upcoming election. We have a lot on the line as Americans with, one party sort of leaning towards socialism, which is communism light. And Mario Bekes, who we're going to talk to today, wrote this book because he sees more and more the globe going towards socialism, and he actually fought and is an intelligence officer. So he's fought wars against communism in his own country as a child. So Mario Bekes is renowned as a human intelligence investigation interrogation expert and founder of Insight Intelligence Group, one of the trusted firms that offers several services that include forensic investigations, surveillance investigations, factual investigations, and more. He is also an ambassador and activist for humanity. Bekes regularly speaks to over 100,000 listeners on his weekly radio show and podcast, Life, the Battlefield, which is on Alive 90.5 FM. And you're probably not familiar with that unless you're out of Australia, because he is Australian. He is a public speaker and multi-international bestseller of 7 books, and is currently finishing his 8th book titled What is the True Price of Freedom, which is what we're going to talk about today. That's going to be released next week. Bekes speaks and trains individuals and employees globally on how to conduct a proper investigation in any workplace. This includes external or internal fraud investigations, compensation claims, external or internal thefts, reputation protection, I can't talk today, and competitor analysis. And I think you're going to find this really interesting because Mario's story is one of growing up in a war zone and being tapped to fight at a very, very early age. So hang on. We'll be right with Mario. Welcome, Mario. I'm so glad to have you on our show today.
Thank you, Juliet, and thank you for having me on your podcast. It's a true pleasure.
I'm really excited to talk about this. We have an election coming up in the United States in a week from the time this comes out. And you had some big messages for us through this book about, I know in the United States, there's a large group of people moving a little bit towards socialism, which is really communism light, which you have a lot of experience with. So start us out with where you were. You became a child soldier. Tell us a little bit about that and how your career morphed from there, or your life for that matter.
Thank you. The fun thing is, I knew a great because you read so many books, you met so many authors, that people don't understand one thing, very, very fundamental thing. We don't learn nothing from the past. And my experience with the war, it's 30 years ago. and it was a civil war. It was a slaughter between people who lived in one community for 50 years together, then suddenly become our enemies. That being said, I was born in communism in a beautiful country then called Yugoslavia. It doesn't exist anymore. The country which was being forced and founded on a base of six republics. Six republics of the people with different religion, different language, different beliefs, and everything else. But we've been all together amalgamated into the one country, and we believe that we are, Slavic people who should rule the world. And we had the iron fist. We have the no Stalin, but we have the Marshal Tito. And unfortunately, everything was artificially been made. It never lasts forever. After Tito passed away, Marshal Tito, 1980, the Yugoslavia started falling apart. And in 10 years' time, the process was being literally dented. People wanted to experience different life. As a kid in the 70s, I couldn't understand very well socialism. And that's the biggest premise and the biggest mistake of people who says, we understand that communism. You can't understand communism if you're not born there and live for at least 15 years, primary school and everything else. So Juliet, imagine you're born and, everywhere, wherever you go, it's all these mottos and, proverbs and the quotes about communism, how great it is on the paintings, murals on the wall. And as a kid, you're growing up in a society, I believe that nothing doesn't exist outside of communism. In 80s, I start discovering that there is a country called USA. They have the Venice Beach there. The people can go and do exercise. They have a nice sneakers. They have the freedom. You understand, as you're growing up, the freedoms become actually squashed by the state. And the downhill of the society in communism, it is that you are working towards something greater good, like collectively. But you know what that greater good it is, actually, it's for the benefits of the few. And then 1991, eventually, the civil war broke out. I found myself on a cusp. Should I now continue fighting for Yugoslavia and in Yugoslav People Army, or I should fight for independence of Croatia? At that stage, my parents already left, then you know where they are. And the civil war broke out. And civil war, it's nothing else than settling the old scores. It has nothing to do with independence. And I was one of these believers, young believers, into something greater. So we replaced one system for another, but again, poverty stays. But what I didn't like it later on, seeing that how easily we've been persuaded to go in that war, which ended up on the same borders, on the same where it started, that's where it ended, Juliet. That was a problem because nothing was gained. Okay, we got independence, but under terrible, terrible costs. And people don't understand how it can be easily manipulated and put into that position to fight own friends, families, and everything else.
Yeah, and I think we actually, you guys don't know this, we did this interview a couple of weeks ago and something happened. The tech gods didn't like it for some reason. So we're doing it again. But the last time you mentioned that there were actually times you would go out and like your neighborhood was gone. Like everything you knew up until that point, and you were 14? Was that?
18 when the war started.
18, okay.
14 when I was 1987 was the Christmas day when my parents, 86, 86, because following year I was in military school. So 86, my parents decided to kick me out because they couldn't feed me. I was a bad student. Like they found all these excuses just to rid of me. So I found myself on the street on a Christmas Eve. It was very cold. I was fortunate enough at that stage. My grandfather was a high position, second in charge of the Yugoslavian secret police. So he used his background and his influence to send me military school, which was for free. So state educate you, state give you the, everything what you don't have just to become the professional officer in the Federal Yugoslav People Army. when the war started in 1991, I was 18 years old, and I went in a war. And this is like unrealistic, Juliet. It's everybody who was your friend and neighbors suddenly started doing the like a Moses in Red Sea division, red and blue. Literally, the red is the communists, the Serbs, the everybody, other your enemies, and the media was in the middle, who was gravitating towards that war, was just continuously we've been fed in couple months prior to the war about what's going to happen. And I was the one who wake up in the morning, found a message of this from my parents, because I was on school holidays, it was the summer, on message, we are okay. So they fled. My parents again dumped me, they're gone. And then I'm walking outside and I'm seeing my friends for 18 years telling me, who you gonna join, who you gonna fight for. And I was confused. I must say I was confused. So from two things you choose, the close to your heart, which is your nationality. But then I realized that later in the war, I was going to war against the people I was growing up, and this is described in a book as well. And it was war for independence, but independence in a way that I fought my enemy, and my enemy was my neighbors, my family, even my members of my family, Juliet. And I couldn't understand what's happened. So in my book, thanks to you, in my publisher, I explained that true casualties are not people on the front line, but the civilians, because more destruction comes, more you want to destroy. So yeah, let's go head to head against people I knew.
Yeah, very, very, very tough. Led you to a career as a military officer, and you went into intelligence.
Yes.
And you guys, I'm gonna make a joke here. He probably doesn't think it's funny, but at one point he went off on a mission and his wife had him declared dead. So you went off and you did things for a really long time, and your family didn't see you, didn't know if you were alive or dead. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was fortunate enough, that I didn't have the luck in love. So like I was always, I always have a tragedy, I mean? Like I met somebody, I love somebody, either, at the beginning of the war, I met a lady before the war, and we, this, when you're playing like, the future, 10 years ahead, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And the war separated us in a way that she's become my enemy. And, a little bit later on, in a war, like, you're lonely and everything else. You wanted somebody next to you. Fortunately for me, I was blessed at that stage, because I didn't know that I had been already been approached by the several services based on that I have no family, I have no kids. So, long story short, I was being married, 95, and funerals of my father comes 96. It's a tragedy, Juliet. I was in a hospital, had the surgery, and my father was a funeral. I was come out of the hospital. I had the wires in my mouth. They took me shuttles out, and my ex, she told me that she's pregnant with somebody else, right? And I was like, okay. I was just like on a funeral of my father. Anyway, a year later, I was being approached by the Directorate 7, Department of Foreign Affairs, that was the counterintelligence services, which I couldn't tell nobody. And on my way to Australia in 98, I find out that I've been pronounced dead by somebody I was sharing my life. And I couldn't do nothing because I was already in Australia. And yeah, I've been actually robbed from everything. So yeah, that was not so funny. Not funny, Julie.
I'm sorry.
It was a tragedy, It was a tragedy. And the funny thing is, like, you have the parents, and then I find out later on, my mom, she took all my pension as well, And it was tragedy, Juliet, I think myself, why people are like this, Why they can't say these things to you in the face? And, today I'm very proud, actually. I was angry then. And thank you for asking me that question, because, today I don't care, so that's okay. So.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually, the reason that came up is we were talking about divorces and he's like, oh, I was just declared dead. And I thought he was kidding. I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah, because she could do it, because at the moment I was in Directorate 7 of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Croatia. You are not anymore public person. You're living different life. As soon as you start working that job in diplomatic intelligence, and that's what the people, 007 and all these movies, are the different. But that come in my third book, which is called The Clock and Dagger, and Juliet's going to be my publisher. So you're going to read more secrets, how the behind the scenes the things being done, and how the diplomacy works, and how people agree about our lives without we knowing. While we're sleeping, they drink and wine and then make deals. And I was listening and standing there, I'm like, am I in the service of my state, or am I in the service of private corporations? That was my biggest biggest question. So yeah, she pronounced me dead. I can't get my car, I can't get my pensions, I can't do nothing, and good luck to her. So yes.
It was awful. So you and I talk a lot, and your friend George, who is a journalist in Australia, we've all talked because he did one of your major endorsements on this. You see a lot of parallels into what's going on in the US today that you wrote your book. I actually remember your friend as a journalist, and I think you said something a phone call or two later about, I can't believe what I'm hearing on your news, it's propaganda. And so what are the things that coming from communism, you probably heard a lot of propaganda. What do we need to be listening for as Americans?
Everybody who believes that socialism is the good should go into school back and should read some books. Socialism is not designed in the communism, because socialism or communism, whatever you want to call it, two different ways of the lifestyle. Like, well, communism is centralized, socialism is a little bit like we give you some rights, you can, in basic things is socialism, workers decide what they want to do, allegedly, to the unions, right? That's basically, and in communism, it's exchange, you have the big factories who producing, and all goods go in the state, so state exchange the goods, and then they do the trade for the state and everything else. So you have a communist party who's in charge of everything. And usually either socialism or communism, they're evil society. And why they're evil? Because it's not designed to rule for the benefit for everybody, but for the very, very small percentage of the people on the top. And the danger with the communism is that those who trump about and they're speaking about communism or socialism, equality, all these things in communism, they've been executed. The greatest example is actually Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. Che Guevara was the one who was an idealistic person who started revolution. And as soon as the revolution finished, we all know, we learned this in schools, in communism, that Fidel Castro need to send him to start new revolution. Then, unfortunately, Che Guevara fell from the window, just metaphorically speaking. So people need to be very, very cautious when they talk about this socialism, because sooner or later, they're going to end up without nothing. They have no voice. In socialism, you really don't have voice. In communism, you don't have voice. It's based on the 10 principles of the Marxism, Marx and Engels, very simply, you own nothing. You don't need a school. We give you the school, we give you education, we give you medical, we give you everything. And everything is for free. Nothing is for free in communism, because you belong to the 95% of society just working for the benefit of the 5%. And the most importantly about communism or socialism, it is that people being pronounced enemy of the state in such a short period of time, and they disappear. It's not like in the democracy, right? So it's like people who talks about socialism or the communism in US, I don't understand. I really don't understand. I think they should be re-educated, give them books to understand what's happening in the past. We have the millions and millions of people perished in communism in the name of the freedom. We have there is no free trade. There's no such a thing, free trade. It is like everything's gray in communism, and people believe that it's such a utopistic society. And there is a famous book which is a cornerstone of the communism, written by Thomas More, called Utopia. And he stated this, and that's what the Marx and Engels pick it up. And communists, all these cronies, that people are sheep. And communism, it's a big sheep farm, and they needed somebody who's going to look after them, and that's a communist society. That's a truth, that's a cornerstone of the communism. People are sheep. Thomas More, in his book Utopia.
Yeah, interesting. So how did all of this lead to what you do today? Because you're a podcast host.
Yes.
You have all these things that you do. How did all this lead into that?
If I lived in communism, I will never talk to you today. If Yugoslavia as a country survived, I will never be able to voice myself out. And this is the greatest awards of being living in free society. Like when I see in the US, what breaks my heart, that people are dividing themselves amongst each other. And it's very wrong. It's very, very wrong, because I don't want nobody wakes up in the morning and go head to head against their friends, their family, their peers, and everything else. And I finished my work with government in 2004. I had enough, almost 20 years. And they started to say in Australia. And Juliet, I believe that the world owes me everything. The world doesn't owe me nothing. So after some setbacks in my life, I decided to start my business, which is this intelligence, and be ridiculous, make it fun and everything else. But eventually I started doing things the way I truly believe people should learn. And that's to be the voice and give the people tools through the conversations with the smart people, and they could share their wisdom how to make a life for other people better. And after all, I think the world needs more people like yourself, and people who's going to talk about positive things rather than negative things.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of negativity right now. I'm hearing everywhere, civil war, civil war. So I think this book is well placed, because I don't really think that people understand what that means. We've been so spoiled in the US with it. So you guys, new book coming out November 1st. It's called What is the True Price of Freedom? And I hope you'll pick it up and experience it and kind of rethink whatever you're thinking about that civil war and socialism coming into the US, because I think it is an important book. So thank you, Mario.